Hi, I'm Jack, and I'd like to talk about how stochastic modeling can reduce the cost of your thermal remediation systems and make your project bids more competitive. In essence, stochastic modeling is using statistics to assign probabilities to model predictions. Since thermal remediation is so expensive, using the quantitative approach to uncertainty makes sense because stochastic modeling results will inform you if your treatment system is overdesigned. No statistical or machine learning technique I'll talk about in this video is highly theoretical or untested. This is all textbook stuff. Monte Carlo simulation, which is a core technique of stochastic modeling, has been around since the Manhattan Project. Here's a simple example to explain what stochastic modeling is. Let's say you have a model and it has three parameters, A, B, and C. You input numbers for these parameters, run the model, and it spits out a number as output. This is what's known as a point estimate. It's just a point on a number line. It doesn't tell you anything about how uncertain the prediction is. Maybe you've run this model lots of times and you can use your experience to judge how precise the estimate is, but that's an empirical approach to uncertainty. In stochastic modeling, each parameter can take a range of possible values dictated by a probability distribution. Instead of running the model once, you run it over and over again, each time using values for these parameters selected from the probability distributions. Eventually, a clear picture emerges of what you can expect the results to look like. Put probability distributions in and get a probability distribution out. With this probability distribution for the output, you can make interval estimations that reflect how certain the prediction is. Wider interval estimations mean that the prediction is less certain. So how could this be applied to thermal remediation? Well, your models probably look like something on the left. For a given moment in time, the conventional ISTR model supplies one prediction, resulting in a curve. Your company has performed lots of thermal remediation projects, and you can use that experience to judge approximately how precise the model is, but that's an empirical approach to uncertainty. With stochastic ISTR modeling, each moment in time has an interval estimate, resulting in a prediction band, like in the plot on the right. You can use this sort of modeling result to decrease the energy intensity of your treatment system design while ensuring that the probability of achieving remediation goals is high. You would have high confidence that the probability estimates themselves are accurate because any stochastic modeling approach we develop will be validated using data from your portfolio of completed thermal remediation projects. Here are some other examples of how stochastic modeling will be useful for your thermal remediation projects. Stochastic modeling will tell you what the probability of system failure is, allowing you to make informed design decisions. It would also allow you to make an interval estimate of the total energy required by a given system design. Some design elements like vapor barriers are expensive, and stochastic modeling will tell you the probability that such design enhancements are actually worth their construction cost. And finally, these model predictions would have a spatial element to them as well, allowing you to identify areas that are at high risk of subpar treatment. Stochastic modeling requires running the numerical model many times, more times than might be feasible for your personal computer. But doing that computation in the cloud is really cheap nowadays. Here's an example calculation. If each model run takes 10 minutes and your Monte Carlo experiment requires 10,000 runs, then you can expect to pay less than $20 US. I'll note here that almost all the software that I think this work would require is free and open source. So how would a stochastic modeling approach deal with spatial parameters? The challenging aspect of groundwater models is how many parameters they have and how many of them are hidden to us. This animation I created during my PhD illustrates one possible approach. In this 2D domain, there is some true permeability field, but our only information about it comes from the soil borings shown. Using a piece of software called tprogs, we can generate many possible interpolations of the soil boring data. In the Monte Carlo approach, each ISTR model run would then use a different randomly selected interpolation. This particular piece of software dates back to 1997, and I have a whole textbook of other geostatistical techniques we could try. For other model parameters, my research experience is directly applicable to taking treatability test data and wringing as much information as possible from it. As an illustrative example, I've generated noisy data with a 2-parameter model, and then tried to estimate the original model parameters using only those data points. Using techniques from a regression analysis textbook, published the year I was born, each model fitting results in a joint probability distribution for the 2 model parameters. You've probably heard of a confidence interval. With this method, you get confidence regions in parameter space, shown here as white ellipses. In this example, I've validated that 90% confidence regions actually contain the true parameter values 90% of the time. If the computational cost of each model run can be kept in check, posing the ISTR system design to the computer as an optimization problem is an interesting possibility. That is, instead of opting for some rigid one-size-fits-all approach like a rectilinear grid, you would input the known information about a site and then let a genetic optimization algorithm pick a distribution of heating elements that has a high probability of treatment success, but a minimum energy cost. For example, if the data indicates a zone of high groundwater flux is likely, the optimization algorithm would place a higher density of heating elements there. If your client likes the speed and efficacy of thermal remediation, but is hesitant about the carbon emissions, you could run an optimization that minimizes CO2. The effect will be similar, but such an optimization might suggest design elements like a vapor barrier that increase the cost but reduce energy usage. If, on the other hand, you're saying to yourself, that wouldn't work, our numerical model takes all day to run, then there are other techniques we can use to quantify uncertainty. For instance, we could take a minimax approach. In minimax, which stands for minimizing the maximum loss, we define the possible range of parameter values is, then use an algorithm like gradient descent to iteratively search out the worst possible treatment outcome. If a given system design can result in poor treatment outcomes with plausible parameter values, then the design needs to be improved. Another option for quantifying uncertainty is to use the linear analysis tools in the PEST software library. Such uncertainty estimates are more approximate compared to traditional Monte Carlo, but we can validate them using data from your completed thermal remediation projects. So I won't pretend that these modeling enhancements will be easy, or that I wouldn't need help from those who know a lot more about these systems than me. But I'm confident that my PhD has given me the right set of skills to do this work. After completing several relevant courses, my dissertation research revolved around connecting models to the real world with statistics. There are experimentalists, those who spent their entire PhD toiling away in the basement lab running experiments, and there are modelers like me, who spent their entire PhD talking to the campus computing cluster through a terminal window. During the first part of my PhD, I helped refine a machine learning tool for interpolating NAPL contamination data from boreholes. I was supposed to spend my PhD working on developing this tool to make predictions in 3 dimensions, but funding for it fell through because research priorities were transitioning to PFAS. So instead, my PhD research focused on estimating the parameters of microbial reductive chlorination models, an almost comically ill-posed inverse problem where a wide range of parameter values can produce equally good model fits to treatability test data. With the guidance of my co-authors, I tested techniques not only for quantifying uncertainty, but also reducing that uncertainty by orders of magnitude. Throughout my PhD, I could confer with my advisor and co-authors for general advice, but I had to figure out how to write all this code and run all these models largely on my own. This ability to start from square one and quickly learn how to use something may be the best thing I got out of my PhD. The animation on the right shows a product for learning Chinese calligraphy that I developed in my side business. I commissioned a calligrapher to film himself writing 3,000 characters and got 15 hours of footage that I then needed to split into individual animations. I knew nothing about computer vision before starting this project, but it turns out that the process of determining the paper orientation and then extracting the pixels I needed from each frame could be posed as an optimization problem, and hey, I know how to solve those. If you would like to know more about my experience working in the burgeoning Chinese environmental remediation market, I have another video on my website for that. That's all for now. Thank you for your time and look forward to hearing from you soon.